Peace and love, family. This is S. Marshall. I want to talk about Donald Trump here. Today is June 2nd, 2020, and what's going on for those who may be looking at this way down the timeline somewhere. Um, George Floyd, who was a so-called African American who was arrested by Minneapolis City Police, and the officer um, in his arrest, officers in their arrest, there was a position where George was on the ground and the officer had his knee on his neck, and the public was pleading for him to get off his neck, and eventually Mr. Floyd died. And as a result, that alarmed the whole nation, and there have been riots and looting and so forth, burning down buildings and police cars and so forth around the country. And during this time, I think this event happened on yesterday, where President Trump walks across from the White House. This is in Washington, D.C., in front of a Catholic church. And we're going to show here. This one.
Start moving back. Side. Hey guys. David, back up, guys. Let's back up.
I'm just going to keep the sound while we look. So he is walking from the White House. As you can see, the White House is in the background, through Lafayette Park. I believe this is the name of this park. And I don't think I visited that park when I was in Washington, D.C. But anyway, he's going to make a photo shoot. I call it a photo shoot. But he's going to do a PR where he's in front of the church holding the Bible. I believe that's a Bible. I can't totally confirm. If someone know that is something different, please say in the comments. This is, we all want to be informed so we can make the best decisions as we navigate through the days and times that we're living in. But for me, one of the outstanding things that just came to my mind was the Black Code laws. The Black Code laws, and these were laws put in place on how to maintain oppression over the slaves. Now, it also dealt with what you call so-called free, so-called black Negroes, and so-called manument. What's the word? Servants, white servants, so-called white servants. Anybody know my background of the Moorish Science Temple? We don't subscribe to the color gangs. We understand every man has a nationality, and every man is known by his ancestors of his nationality, or group of people, or culture. And every nationality, in some way, it ties them back to a heritage with a land and a heritage of a people and a history. These colors mark and disbar your history. It disbar your ancestors. It disbar your legacy of who you are. So we don't subscribe to the color game. However, in some instances, politically, now the color white is a symbol of nobility and can characterize righteousness and purity. So certainly, white should not be subscribed just to anyone, and should not be subscribed to someone just because of pale skin, but it should be subscribed to someone who is of righteous character and of noble character. So with that being said, I'm just gonna skip here to some of the footage here. Let's see if we can get a little sound. As you see, he's holding that appears to be a parish. As you know, in New Orleans, they go by parishes. So just understand the relationship and government.
We have a great country. That's my thoughts. This country in the world. Great. And it won't take long. It's not going to take long. You see what's going on. It's coming back. It's coming back strong. It'll be greater than ever before.
You run on to further inflaming tensions by using the U.S. military to suppress this?
Paul said many times men of wisdom, they talk in codes, they talk in symbolisms, so they're talking to one level. I can't see what's on that bridge of that book, because part of me wonders if that's a Masonic Bible, but maybe that could be a further investigation as we look at. What you see here, this photo this was just not just taking pictures. This is a message, in my opinion, in my hypothesis. And when you're dealing with hypothesis, nothing is absolutely true, but it is a conclusion based on the facts that I present. And so my hypothesis is that he is giving a symbol, sending a symbol out to the world, to let folks know that they are ruling by the highest order, which is the Catholic Church, and whatever is about to come down, whatever's about to bring, what's coming next, he's letting y'all guys know, or letting the world know, that he has authority to do so. So, like I said, and that authority is coming from, if that's what it is, the Bible there, I'm going to go with that premise, is that the Bible, the Christian Bible, the Roman Catholic Church, is the highest law of the land. And so here, you're looking at a document, right? I'm showing here. This is a document. It's called a Louisiana Code d'Or. That's French for black. 1724, you see here. I'm not going to go into the whole thing. We're just going to point out a couple things, like maybe 2 or 3 decrees. But let's just read the first part up here to get an understanding of what the black codes were and what the black codes were for. Let's just read a little bit. To regulate relations between slaves and colonists. The Louisiana Code d'Or, or Slave Code, based largely on that compiled in 1685 for the French Caribbean colonies, was introduced in 1724 and remained in force until the United States took possession of Louisiana in 1803. The code's 54 articles regulated the status of slaves and free blacks, as well as relations between masters and slaves. The entire body of law appears below. And so I would add to that part of this code also dealt with white servants, so-called white servants. All right. let's read here. The first one, it says the Black Code, Louisiana. It says now, before I begin, always look at the source and what source I'm using. You could PDF the Louisiana Code New York 1724, and you'll probably get various forms or types of document. Now, it was written kind of in French, so it had to be translated. So some of these are translations, and they may be worded differently depending on what PDF or what document you're reading. This right here is I got this source is dated 8/31/2016. The name of it is Primary Document, Louisiana Code New York. We got here Dr. Quintard Taylor Jr. Look like along with Scott and Dorothy Bullitt, professors of American History, University of Washington, Department of History. So always, just a side note, always know the source that you're looking at or what source somebody is speaking from. It lays, has an impact on what type of information you're listening to. So here are the Black Code of Louisiana. You see decree number 1. It says decrees the expulsion of Jews from the colony. Now it's interesting that it would mention Jews, but it's in the form of black codes. To me, that says volumes of other things, right? Now remember, this is 1724, and this is actually compiled in 1685. So 1600s, what did the Jews look like? Did they look like so-called black folks? That's another argument, another inquiry that we're not going to get into, but it's definitely something that jumps out immediately in this code, right? Number 2, it says make it imperative on masters to impart religious instructions to their slaves. And number 3, it says permits the exercise of the Roman Catholic creed only. Every other mode of worship is prohibited. And that's what jumps out to me when we look at Donald Trump parading with his cabinet, right, in front of this St. John's church here. Those codes, right, that distinguish to the masses that you are to make sure that your slaves, right, are ruled and taught the doctrines of the European Christian Church. So this is what jumps out to me, and this is the signal that jumps out to me as I see Trump making these PR moves of the Bible and the church. Now, notice the church is boarded up, right? I think that has. I'm a very spiritual person. That's some spiritual significance. And there may be some symbolic significance in there. Notice this number 1525 for my gematria folks. 1525, that may be a number that need to be looked into to see what those numbers, how those numbers converts into words, and what's the makeup. Let's see, if we add it up, we got 1 and 5 is 6, 6 plus 2, 7, 8, 8 plus 5 is 13, right? 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So that's an interesting number. That number equals 13. And of course, 1 and 3 is 4. So it's a lot of symbolicness going on here. Let's look at his stance. I can't really see that he's on the square. He's making a square stance. Let's see. Let's look a look. Let's see if we see any other symbolicism going on. We got the right over left. right here, the brother here. I'm sorry, that would be leftover right. Leftover right. That's not a righteous. That means some type of sorcery science. If he's of a man of wisdom, you know. Um, but I'm not really noticing too much else that's going on here. So it could be all me, right? But let's go back to our black codes. Let's look at this a little bit more, right? I want to go to 13. Let's see. Number 13 right here. It says here, we forbid slaves belonging to different masters to gather in crowds either by day or by night under the pretext of a wedding or for any other cause, either at the dwelling or on the grounds of one of their masters or elsewhere, and much less on the highways or the secluded places, under the penalty of corporal punishment. We shall not be less. Hold on. I didn't read too well. Let's see. Either at the dwelling or on the grounds of the other masters, or elsewhere, and much less on the highways or in the secluded places. And you see where these protests is taking place on the highways and yes, in secluded places. Under the penalty of corporal punishment, loot or shoot, right? Which shall not be less than the whip. You see them out there whipping them batons, spraying tear gas and so forth. And I'm not saying that, on some circumstances it may be needed to gain order and, but certainly there's the video and the tapes where it's just outrageous on the use of the baton and the tear gas and so forth. In case of frequent offenses of the kind, the offenders shall be branded with the mark of the flower de luce. Now, this is interesting, family. That de luce, flower, it's if you know football, the Saints, the NFL Saints football logo, they use that logo on their helmets. Let's see if we can look this up right quick. Flower of so I can give y'all guys an image. Okay, here it is. Here's a good. Let's see. Here's one. So right here is the symbol of that flower. That was branded on the slaves, right? Who attempted to run away, and every offense, they would get a brand. So that's something I never really realized. That also, I believe that is a symbol of the French government, meaning when you have that, anything that's branded, that's showing that it is property owned by an owner. And in many senses, the propagation of well, I lost my thought. The propagation, yes, of labeling black and so forth, that is a mark of ownership. Okay. So yeah, that is very interesting that that we're still using that emblem. So the next time you see the Saints or football game, this should mark your memory that that's a sign of ownership markings, that was used back in the French colony era with the slaves. And let's continue. It says, and should there be aggravating circumstances, capital punishment may be applied at the discretion of our judges. We command all our subjects, be they officers or not, to seize all such offenders. That means even if you're not an officer, you can seize these slaves, right? If they was gathering crowds or playing, look like they up to something. And it says to arrest and conduct them to prison, although there should be no judgment against them. Meaning, there's no judicial process, just simply because. And so it's this type of order where you hear Trump using the word like dominance and using the word loot and shoot, or shoot and loot, or shoot the loot. That type of lingo. I mean, I know it's various levels, but I'm just saying, for me, it reminds me of the Black Code history, right? It reminds me of some of the Black Code history. And so I'm not going to go into a lot of this, but check this out here. Where it says the stealing of sheep, goats. This is 30. Number 30, the stealing of sheep, goats, hogs, poultry, grain, fodder, peas, beans, or other vegetables, produce, or provisions, when committed by slaves, shall be punished according to the circumstance of the case. And the judges may sentence them, if necessary, to be whipped by the public executioner and branded with the mark of the flower de los, again, And so, family, I just, just want to share some of that, because when I initially saw this, I immediately thought of the rule of the Catholic Church and symbolism of authority to get these so-called slaves, get these slaves in check, Black codes. So that's just kind of my bill. Love to hear what you think, your comments, and things that I might have missed along the way as it developed. I'm sure it's way more to this than what the eye meets. Until next time, it's Marshall Wood. Make sure you hit like, hit that notification bell, talk big. I see you in the next.